So that was it from housekeeping. I'll encourage everyone to continue writing in the chat, telling us where you're from. Yeah, time to introduce our speaker today. So Abel is one of our consultants. He's been working since last year to really develop the community of teachers that we have across the region, both teachers and teacher educators. And he has over 15 years of experience as a teacher and as a trainer. So he's super sharp in what he does. And he has presented at several local conferences in Nigeria, but also international conferences. He's actually very interested in research. He has actually written some papers, and he has interest in TESOL, digital communication, critical discourse analysis, applied linguistics, and project-based learning. He has a deep passion in supporting and inspiring teachers across the globe to be responsible for quality education by taking professional development seriously. So welcome, Abel. Thank you for accepting to present this session. I'm just gonna hand over now, and yeah, enjoy the session, everyone.
Thank you very much, Steve, for that warm welcome, and we'll go straight right into why we're here today. The aim of this particular webinar really is to help teachers align assessment tools with learning objectives and learner profiles for more effective and inclusive instruction. So we have three main objectives. First, we'd like to understand how to align learning objectives with assessment tools. Secondly, we would like to apply diverse tools to improve engagement and learning outcomes. And then lastly, we'll try to explore the different learner needs that we might come across in our profession as teachers. Remember, the theme for this month is understanding my learner. So we're going to be focusing more on understanding our learners. All right. Just a quick warm-up activity. Would you like to type in the chat a positive adjective that begins with the alphabet as the same as your name? Type in the chat an adjective that describes you and then begins with the same alphabet as your name. I'll type in the chat mine now. I've typed mine now. So let me see you type yours. Let's know how many people are in the room and what they think about themselves. Thank you, Alexander, Amiable, Teshom teacher, Linda, Leonie, Leon, okay. Oh, Leonine. Oh, that's good. Leo, okay, great. Isn't the exceptional Ogechi objective brilliant? All right, keep your yes, justice, joyful. Thank you, Jerome. All right, thank you very much. Yes, I love this. Chat is buzzing. All right, let's move to the next. Now take a look at what you can see on your screen. Just have a mental picture of it and see how you can match these items, the ones to your left and the ones to your right. What do you think? What should match the other? You don't have to tell me what your opinion is now. I just want you to think about it. Write it somewhere in your paper or in your journal. We have some items to the left. We have others to the right. Just tell me what you think. Or just write it somewhere. We'll come back to it much later. All right. Just some concept clarifications so that we know what we're talking about today. First, learning objectives has to do with clear statements describing what learners should know or be able to do after instruction. That's learning objectives. Secondly, we're going to be looking at assessment tools. And assessment tools generally are instruments or techniques used to evaluate students' learning, whether it is for learning or of learning. Whatever you do, provided it's an instrument or a technique, we consider that an assessment tool. And then lastly, we'll be looking at learner needs, those specific knowledge or skills or attitudes and support that students require to successfully achieve learning goals. These are the things we are going to be looking at today, just in case you're not aware or you're not sure of our focus of today's discussion. These are the keywords, and I'd like you to join me on the ride as we go. Now, there's a maxim in management that I'd like us to think about in the light of lesson objectives and our learners' needs. And here's the maxim. It says, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. What do you think about this? Can you type in the chat? Tell me what you think about it. You cannot manage what you cannot measure in the light of a lesson objective and your learners' needs. I'm waiting to see what you're typing in the chat. Steve, can you help me with that? Do we have anyone? Okay, anyone? Okay. I have someone here. Yet. Okay. Someone has said, and to understand what they already know, this makes them feel more confident and happy. The name is long. I'm trying to pronounce the name so I don't butcher the name. It starts with V. All right. Teshom says, be specific to achieve your purpose. Thank you. You need to know exactly what the challenge is in order to prefer solution. I agree, Ogechi. Rose says, as a teacher, you need to understand what the learner has gained from your teaching. I agree. Linda says, is this always true? Sometimes you can't measure chaos, but you can sometimes manage chaos to make it slightly less chaotic. Yes, it might be true, it might not be true. But I mean, we all have the idea of what measurement is about and what management is about. So keep your comments coming in. Confidence says it's important to set measurable goals. I agree. So in the light of our the light of our lesson objective and our learners' needs, it's good to know what we are teaching them and how far we have come with what they know or what we have done to make them understand the focus of our subject. So assessment truly is a vital component of teaching and learning process. For you to align your assessment, you need to do that in agreement with what your learners need and the objective of the lesson. That is the best way to measure what your students are expected to learn. All right. So why do you think assessment matters? Well, first, it is not just to measure learning. In addition to that, it also helps you to shape the learning process. Assessment influences motivation, engagement, and progress. The right or the best assessment tool should be able to deepen learning and give better outcomes. So as a teacher, you've got to be creative enough to look at your audience, look at your students, and think about the best tool for them. Sometimes it depends on your expertise, your experience, and that's why we're having this webinar today, so that you'll be exposed to more ideas to help you manage the learning process of your students. We've got some types of assessments. If you check on the Africa Teaching English website, we've got materials. Steve, can you help share some of those links? You could go check those links. You get more information about assessment and types of assessment. Primarily, in education practice, we've got formative assessment. That is assessment for learning. It's ongoing, it's diagnostic. It just tries to check whether the learners are following. And then we've got summative assessment, which is done at the end of your learning. It's usually evaluative, and it is of the learning that the learning of the things that your learners have engaged in. Okay. We have a poll here that I'd like everyone to respond to so that we know the kinds of people we have in our webinar today. Steve, is the poll ready so we can set up for our audience to participate?
Yeah. I can just launch it. I'm gonna launch it now.
Okay, and then if you've got the links to the assessment, please share so that our audience can be a part of it. They can connect to the website and learn more about assessment. Thank you very much, everyone who is responding to the poll. Oh, both. Summative assessment, just 3%. What's going on? Okay, well, I understand. Since many are saying both, it means summative assessment inclusive. So that's fine. All right. Beautiful. I'll give you just 3 more seconds or so for you to respond before we go on. Okay, thank you very much for responding to the poll. From what we have here, we have many of you interested or knowledgeable or use frequently the formative and summative assessment. So we will not dwell too much on assessment any longer because starting from July all through till September, we'll be talking about assessment for the British Council Global Offer theme for the month. So thank you everyone for participating in the poll. Now, let's talk about aligning assessment with learning outcomes. Now, if you want to recall, or if you want your students to recall something, the best assessment tool to use is quizzes or multi-choice questions. If you want them to analyze anything, the best is to use case studies or scenarios. And then if you want them to be creative, you want them to create new things out of the things that you have taught them, you think about giving them projects or presentations. And these are the easiest ways to have your students or your learners engage or to get information about their learning process or the things that you are trying to teach them. In a class, you have some students who are not, we can consider them lower level learners, or what you want to elicit from them is maybe a very low stake test or quiz. You can have them identify, define, or recognize ideas. But if you say higher order thinking or high stake stuff you want to get from them, you've got to engage them in comparing and contrasting, applying and predicting things. And they should use essays, open-ended questions, writing papers and projects. So it's important to know that you can actually align your assessments with learning objectives. And this brings us to the point about the Bloom taxonomy. Are we familiar with this, Bloom's taxonomy? This is a very important tool, very structured way of helping teachers and learners interact with the objective of the course or the topic, and also the assessment and instruction for that particular course or lesson, as it were. And the Bloom's taxonomy, for those of you who have some background in education, you would agree with me that it has undergone a lot of modifications. Many teachers have their reviewed versions of the Bloom's taxonomy. And at the highest point of it is to create, which is has a way of enhancing or encouraging your learners or whoever has learned something to be able to independently, genuinely create something new out of the knowledge that he or she has acquired. And at the base of the pyramid is remembering, how you remember what has been taught, how you recall what has been taught. Here are some matching verbs that you can use when you're creating the objectives of your lesson plan or your course plan. If if you have it properly organized, if you think about it very deeply, it has a way of helping you connect the subject, break it down to achievable objectives, and then you can also assess your learners just by the use of this taxonomy. And I would encourage you to take time out to study the Bloom's taxonomy. All I want you to do now really is just to know about it and think about it so that when you are able to invest some more time in it, you make sense of it. Now, starting from the bottom, we've got the first point, which is to remember ideas that you have learned. And you can use things like choose, define, list, mention, state. Those are actually lower level testing of what your learners have learned. Even understanding at this point, your learners can talk about what they can remember with their own words. It shows that they can explain, they can demonstrate understanding, knowledge of what they remember. And then application here goes even higher. And then when you go to analysis, evaluation, it goes higher, it goes deeper to what you want your learners to know. And then, of course, like I said, at the peak of it is creation. At that point, they can compose, they can modify what they have learned. And this is the revised version of what Benjamin Bloomfield in the 1950s, I think 1956 specifically, actually created and has helped many people, in education psychology. So let's do a little exercise. What can you remember from what I just shared about the Bloom's taxonomy? Take a look at what you have to your left and to your right. We have a list of words, left and right. Can you reorder what you saw and then think of how you can match them? What did you see and can you match them? I'm waiting for your responses. All I want to do is just test if you remembered. I just want to know if you recall what you just saw. And you can use this strategy to help. This is a short quiz and no stakes, very low stakes, so no issues. Even if you forget, no problem. Yes, remember lists. Thank you. 1B, everybody's saying 1B. I like that. Can we move to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Yeah, create, modify. Thank you. All right, beautiful. Excellent. Yes, 6D. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. If you remember, there's a mnemonic I had on the slide. How many of you caught the mnemonic? RUAAC. If you can remember that mnemonic, then this shouldn't be difficult. All right, let's go to the answers. This is just a quiz, so don't worry. No stakes. Nobody's going to be punished for not getting it right. I just wanted to know if you recall. Good. So here are the answers. If you got yours right, congratulations. If you didn't, no worries. We'll do it again.
Abel, it seems you actually moved past the slide.
Yes, I can see it. My slides have gone faster than.
Oh, okay. Maybe I should. Because on my side, I've actually seen that you've moved past that slide. See if I can just go back. Oops. Yeah. Oops. Looks like we've. Oops. What did I just do? Sorry. Sorry. I guess I'm gonna share again because
Okay, that's fine.
I've just lost control of the slides. I'm just gonna share again.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
So while you're doing that, I'll just check in the chats what everyone is saying. Oh, I couldn't see the exercise. Sorry, Tashom. It's fine. No worries. Thank you, Kele Bogile. Yes, you just missed only one letter, R, at the beginning, but that was a good try. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Steve. We move to the next slide now. Quickly, we'll talk about aligning assessment with lesson outcomes and learning needs. If you have an assessment that captures the needs of the learners and the lesson outcomes, it shows that that assessment is valid. At the same time, it promotes equity and fairness. But how do you know the needs of your learner? How do you accommodate everyone? How do you make your class more diverse? How do you accept people based on their levels of, say, for example, educational background, gender, religion, and so on? Well, you can do a needs analysis. And if you check the website of teachingenglish.org.uk, you can find this article, very elaborate on needs analysis. And it actually involves doing some kind of activity with a learner in order to find out what their learning needs are. For me, when I started this semester, I engaged my students. The very first class that we had, I asked them to introduce themselves to their partners, discuss their expectations about the course, and document their partners' responses. And subsequently, they exchanged the records of what their partners had written, just to verify if there was some accuracy in the reported form of what they had said. Now, what I did in that particular activity was to know the level of my learners. I just wanted to know. And these are just excerpts of some of the information they shared. Now, if your screen is good, you'll be able to read. Even if you can't, I'll just tell you the summary. Many of them just wanted to become better communicators. They wanted to learn more about the English language. But while I read through all these papers, because they wrote as much as they could about what their partners had shared with them, I had the opportunity to reflect on what they had said. So I got deeper on insight about their proficiency. And then, of course, they had immediate talking points like spelling errors. I saw some spelling errors I had to check in the next class, grammatical errors. Since they are studying English language, I had to check all those things with them. And then, of course, there were some other hidden learning needs that they themselves did not even recognize, because of their level of understanding or their level of language proficiency. And this task actually helped me to engage them in the key 21st century skills, which is collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and communication. And in the whole, it gave me an idea of how to support my learners to meet their specific contexts and needs. And this helped me a great deal to, align the curriculum with what they actually need. Mind you, the designers of the curriculum have softened the work for you. They have given you some sort of baseline as to what the learners need at that level. So all you do as an instructor or a teacher or an educator is to build upon the foundations that they have laid in the curriculum And then you go the step further by inquiring what your learners, the actual learners in the class need. Sometimes it's not too far from it, but other times you have to also think creatively how to meet the needs of your learners. Okay, now in neuro-linguistic programming, which is a very vast area that we will not have time to talk much about, there's a concept called submodalities designed by Richard Bandler, and it has components that helps to connect the internal representation of experiences with the five senses. Those of you who are conversant with the five senses, they are visual, auditory, kinesthetics, olfactory, and there's a fifth one. I'll remember it. But these five senses have been, reduced into submodalities. We talked about this extensively yesterday at the Telegram group conversations, community of practice for English Connect in Sub-Saharan Africa. These will help you understand your learners even better, because some learners are more drawn to visual cues or visual triggers, while others to auditory triggers or sounds, things that appeal to the sensory organ of sounds. And then we have kinesthetic, those who are tactile, who like to feel, who like to experience things by moving around. We have people like that. And the knowledge of this will help you a great deal in planning your lesson or even assessing them. Now, let's have some examples of the points I'm trying to make. Now, for those who are visual, there are visual submodalities. You can trigger that in textual forms. And by doing this, you would elicit some sort of spatial or mental image, create some mental images as they interact with whatever material or assessment that you want to have them do. So for example, you have the sentence, imagine a bright red apple sitting in the center of a white table. Anyone who has this visual submodality would immediately picture this and would be interested, because the person can actually see this, the adjectives you have used to describe what it was you were saying in the sentence, because you have used a lot of colors, you've used adjectives that refer to space, and the purpose of this really is just to activate the mental movie screen that helps visual learners process screen scenes vividly. Vividity is very important for those whose submodality, the strongest point of their submodality is their vision. And then for those who are auditory learners, or whose submodalities of their hearing is very sharp, they are drawn to onomatopoeic sounds, rhythm, instructions that involve sound. And I have an example here with a sentence that says, listen to this sentence in your head. Does it sound smooth or choppy? So you are using words in text form to elicit or draw them into their own submodality to give them an idea of what you're trying to say. So the point here is to vary the submodalities. And then for those who are kinesthetic, who are more tactile, would want things that will evoke the sensation, texture of movement, and they can feel things, they can have some sort of bodily experience while they learn. So having this at the back of your mind will help you even when you understand your learners and when you plan your lesson objectives, and also when you also try to assess them, because you know that they fall in any of these categories, and it makes even your presentation or your lectures or your delivery styles tailored to meet the cognitive needs the sensory needs of your students. And this would enhance a lot of engagement and retention of information. So have this at the back of your mind when you are interacting with your learners, that they belong to different submodality groups. Now, this is not all when it has to do with submodality, but suffice to say, they are largely categorized in these three groups. There's another group that is called the audio-digital group. Those ones are more drawn to reading texts and, making a connection between what they read with what is interpreted in their minds through the aid of sound. Now, understanding differentiation is one very important area that many of us as teachers in the 21st century are becoming more conscious about. But the main point I'm going to be talking about in understanding differentiation and the rationale behind having an atmosphere that is encouraging for your students is the growth mindset by, as Rachel Roberts discusses in the link that is here on your screen. Steve, can you share the link so that our audience can later check? There are about 5 videos that they can check much later and, be conversant with what the differentiation or the idea of differentiation is all about. Well, for having a growth mindset, really, it helps you as a teacher to empower your students to believe that their abilities and intelligence can improve through consistent efforts, learning from mistakes, and resilience. So if you have that kind of environment that enhances these things, it helps your learners from different backgrounds of different kinds to see the sense in, learning from you as their teacher, and they also see that they can also learn from their classmates or their peers. And it gives them this assurance that despite the systemic challenges that they face or limited resources and social-cultural barriers, the environment is friendly enough for them to learn, and they're not going to be, beat down because of where they're coming from or who they are. I hope your classrooms have these characteristics. If they don't, please read this material and it will help you a great deal. Now, let's talk about learning objectives and matching assessments. We had talked about those verbs that can help you. But let's talk about the learning domain. Cognitive domain has to do with knowledge. Affective domain has to do with attitude. Psychomotor domain has to do with skill. And for each of these domains, you can test or you can check if your learners are connecting with the objectives of the lesson. So if you want to test the cognitive domain, you can have them identify states, define things, or they can select items that are correct, like I did earlier. And you can use multiple choice questions. You can use quizzes just to test that level. If you want to check attitude, you can have them demonstrate something. The suitable assessment would be self-reflection, peer assessment. And then if you want them to acquire a skill, or want to show them, they want to show you a skill that they've acquired, want to test that, you can use expressions like perform, create, modify, and you give them practical tests. And while they do it, you go around ensuring that they are following or they understand what you have taught them. Now, remember the first slide I showed you about these ideas on the left and to the right. With what you have learned so far, do you think what I have, my assessment of this is correct? take a look at what you have on your screen. I'm matching these, what we have on the left to what is on the right. Do you think this is accurate? Is this fair, or do you think it's wrong in terms of matching? These, yeah, 2, B and C, yes. Oh, 2 is A and C, okay. Yes. Wodi Frau, thank you. I see what you're writing in the chat. Do we have any more? Do we have any more? Okay, fair, thank you. The match in shapes and color, yes, that's the idea. So basically, you shouldn't have just one match, because sometimes you would have learners with different abilities and they should be able to connect at different levels, and it shouldn't just be one jacket fits all. Thank you very much, Uchechukwu Gome Augustina. It's okay. Thank you. All right. So the British Council has a framework for professional development. And this framework is just to help us contextualize learners or learning. And we have a list here. Learner profiles, if you want to check a learning context, the language level, like I mentioned earlier, special education needs, level of autonomy, you need to put all that into consideration because it's important in setting up your classroom or setting up your lesson for the day. Now, even your classroom setting, is it online? Is it face-to-face? You need to put that into consideration as well. And then learning objectives, consider that very important. What do you want to achieve? These are the contexts you have to put into consideration when you are in a teaching environment as a teacher. And of course, the cultural and other factors. Now, here is something I'd like you to look at very quickly on the proficiency level of language learners. For those who are lower level language learners, they need a lot of scaffolding, they need a lot of support. Their errors are frequent, so you need to concentrate. And the common framework, the common European framework of reference for language, consider anyone who is between A1 and B1 to be a low-level language learner. And then for B2 to BC is a higher level language learner. So I'd like you to, Steve, is the poll ready? Let's see if we can test. Let's know what audience, what their level, the level of their learners are. For me, it's a mix of both, but I have more of low level language learners. So there's a lot of scaffolding needed for me. So we'll just use this poll in the next 30 seconds. And then we'll be done with the poll. Yeah, I see a question. Thank you very much. The affective students are really captured, measured. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Barao Rabiatu. I see that. Yeah, thank you for that question. I see another question from Nijashi. All right, thank you. I think we can take one more or two more seconds and then we close the poll. All right, thank you very much for sharing. All right, thank you. Yes, so I think what we have here, we have both. We have more people who have both kinds of learners. So you need to tailor your assessment and all that to favor the learners that you have. Now, there's a decision-making metrics strategy that I would like to share with you. on how to design an assessment that works. And this way it's objective. It helps you to choose the best assessment tool by scoring or ranking options against factors that matter the most in your context. So the first thing you do is to list your assessment options. What can you do as a teacher? What is available to you? In Sub-Saharan Africa, we really don't have many of those fancy technology. Sometimes we have very large classes and then you're thinking, what do I do? How do I go about it? So have a list of the options that you have, and then you pen it down somewhere. And then you also have a list of the key criteria that you can consider common criteria to check. The learner engagement, the time required to prepare, the marks, alignment with learning objectives, suitability for the learner's language level, and then feedback opportunities. These feedback opportunities is very important for language learning because the feedback is very important. Honestly, students need to know if they are doing well. It has to be such that it is actionable. It's timely. The feedback should not lag too much, So these things are very important, for your students. And then you also have to grade each tool 1 to 5 just to show how it meets the criterion. And then you total the score, and then whatever has the highest score is likely going to be the tools you're going to use to assess your students. Now, here's an example. Here's an example of the table or the decision-making metrics that I have. So vertically, you have the tools. Horizontally, you've got the criteria. So you try and see how you can match these. Now, this is not exclusive because you can also add more depending on your context. So for my context, I can actually do these 4 that I've listed, but I have to create more time now because the group project, oral presentation and portfolio is time consuming. So it's not really as time friendly as the quiz. So for me, as a teacher or as an educator, I have to find a way to balance all and help my students to just to make sure that they get the information that they need. And you can use many tools, for grading your students. You can use peer, mentor, or student leaders to help informative assessment, just to ensure that you've driven home the point or the lesson is taken. So oral presentations would help your learners to get feedback almost immediately and from other peers. So these things are very important. And I would encourage you to have a decision metrics to help organize your assessments and, of course, the objective of your lesson. All right. So how does the knowledge of submodalities enhance assessment styles in language learning? Well, for visual learners, please, if you're going to assess people in your class, whether it's lower grade, higher grade, try as much as possible to include picture-based vocabulary tests to help those who are very visual or who are more on the visual side. And the assessment will help engage their visual memory and spatial understanding. This will help them recall better. Remember that assessment is not to judge, really is just to help them master what they have learned and help you as an educator to be the best educator, because what you want is for them to be transformed. And the best way to do that is by making it learner-centered. Then for those who are auditory learners, you can use assessments that have listening, comprehension tasks, oral presentations, dictation, and repetition, repeat after me exercises. Some students will find this very exciting and it will capture their strengths as auditory learners. And then for kinesthetics, I mean, I can't say this enough. There are many people who are very hands-on. They like to do these things. They like, because if you do something, you learn it better. You even become much better. I remember the taxonomy of Bloom. The highest point is creation, right? So many people are in this particular level. Sorry, we want to make many people come into this level where they can apply the knowledge that they have gotten to new environments, new situations, and that will go a long way to improve what they already know, and it will help you to become a better teacher. So those who are tactile, it helps them to interact, and you can do role-play simulations, language games involving physical activities, and so on and so forth. This would help them grow. And for the question you asked, I think it's Najashi, I think here is your answer. You can combine all these things to help all learners in these submodalities who belong to these submodality levels. All right, we gradually have come to the end of our discussion. What are the key takeaways? Well, a learner-centered assessment means designing tasks to align with how students experience and process the world. The essence of assessment really is to help shape the learning process. It's not necessarily to judge or destroy our members, our students, or to just measure what they have learned. It's really to help them become better, is to transform them from what they didn't know to what they know now. So if you incorporate some of these ideas that we have shared today, it will help you to diversify your assessments, know your learners better, honor learning preferences, and also improve accuracy in measuring language competence. And then lastly, it will help you to support and challenge learners in just the right ways. Thank you very much for your time. I'll respond to your questions now. Thank you. Steve, over to you.
Thanks so much, Abel. I think we'll get some fantastic comments in the chat today.
Yeah, thank you.
Not just about the content of your presentation, but also about your delivery. I think it's top notch. I've seen some great comments today. And now we just want to now focus on some questions added in the chat. I would like to start with some. There was actually one quite interesting, and you've actually read that. I think you've actually provided more or less an answer to the question. But I just want to maybe just look a little bit above. Some people have asked about assessing learners using Kahoot. I think you didn't actually dig deeper into those technological tools, but what do you think about? Of course, you've actually shared why in your decision making matrix, how you should actually select the tools that you want to use in your classroom. But what is there a benefit in using maybe technological tools in the classroom to assess learners?
Of course. The benefits of using digital tools and AI by far is one thing that the 21st century education has brought in that has made life easy for many teachers. So if you have the ability, you have the environment that encourages the use of technology, please use it, maximize it for the benefit of your students and also your benefit as a teacher. Recently, I gave a mock exam to my students, and I really did not lift. I didn't do much. I just sent in my lecture notes to an AI platform that designed some sort of quiz or multi-choice questions and answers. And I gave them a time for them to come online and respond to the questions. And they did. And they were all excited because it was a mock exam. It helped them to prepare for the main exam. And they did this within an hour, and they got their responses, and they were very happy. I didn't do much. I didn't have to sit down like I'm going to sit in the next few days to mark, hundreds of scripts. All I did was just use technology and it helped them. So if your context allows for the use of technology, why not? Please maximize it to the maximum.
Thanks. Thanks, Abel. There's another question here.
Someone is asking the name of the AI. There are many. Well, I used ChatGPT. I used ChatGPT and it worked very fine. It just gave me multiple choice questions and the answers. And I gave them using Google form and it's really good. Thank you, Uchechi, for that question.
Super. Thanks for answering that question up. Now the next one, before we actually move to those who raising their hand at the moment. So we've got a question about, how do you think, in your opinion, you can actually motivate a learner who had scored low marks continuously for his term class test? Abel, can you hear me? Did you get the question? Abel.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get the question, but you're trying to ask a question about somebody who had scored low marks consistently, yeah?
Yes.
Is that a question?
Yeah, how would you actually motivate that learner who had actually scored low marks?
Hello, Steve.
Hello?
Abel, can you hear me? I suspect Abel's interconnectivity is not very, very good. So let's hold on a second. But I would just like to maybe ask the audience, has there been any actually? Sorry, hello, Abel.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes,
now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So can you repeat the question? Please, can you repeat the question?
Let me go back to the question. So the question was, how do you motivate a learner who has actually who's got low marks continuously during the term? I'm actually trying to go back to the chat to get back to the question. But it was around really motivating a learner who has continuously gotten low marks.
Oh, okay, I get the question. If you can hear me, just indicate.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes,
am I audible enough now?
Yes, you are. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I was talking about the growth mindset earlier, and one very good important thing you should tell that learner, sometimes they have this expression of I can't. You always add the powerful word yet to the I can't. I can't do this. You say yet. You can't do it yet. So have a growth mindset. Create a growth mindset around your learners, especially that particular student or candidate. Special needs, students with special needs need special attention. And if it's actually a problem of psychology, you do well to get an expert to interact with the child. I'm sure many schools have guidance and counseling personnel or psychologists who help students. So it's not your job as a teacher to begin to go into psychology, but you can encourage the learner and tell the learner that, yes, you can't do this now, but you can do it. You can eventually do it. Just say, I can't do it yet, and keep working towards getting it. And learners like that are very phenomenal. Praise the little efforts that the person is making, no matter how little, because when you praise them, it's a good motivation. And then also try to normalize mistakes as a vital point of growth. And then also model your learning process. There are movies out there that you can watch with your students, maybe off classroom time, that talks about people who were poor learners and then eventually became good and better students. I think there's a movie, like Stars on Earth. I remember that movie very fondly. And then, of course, talk about role models in the society who didn't do well at a point, and then they later became better. So you can invest time in such students and just help them. Just have a positive and growth mindset around your learners. They would improve, I assure you.
Thanks so much, Abel. We've got 1 more minute. I'm not sure if anyone would like to raise ask a question live. Otherwise, I've seen some of the hands that were raised being actually put down. So just one question here, one more question before you go. So what's the biggest challenge here? What's the biggest challenge in aligning assessment methods with students' diverse learning needs? What is the biggest challenge? What's the biggest challenge in aligning assessment methods with students' diverse learning needs?
Yes, the biggest challenge truly is time. Time, you need to plan. You need to take a lot of time to plan, and you need to take a lot of time to execute. So if you're doing something in addition to the teaching job, just make ends meet, it's going to be difficult to do all this. But you can do much more, by creating time, because time management is a skill. So take some lessons about time management, and I'm sure you do well as a teacher. The challenges are there, but you can surmount them. Thank you.
Thanks, Abel. So I guess I will close with that. Thanks so much for the brilliant presentation. We'll quickly just we'll have the time. I've seen some questions that weren't asked, that weren't answered because they would ask kind of last minute. So I would just invite everyone who's on the call today to join us in our community of teachers on Telegram, where next Friday we'll have an opportunity with Abel to ask more questions and dig deeper into some of the strategies and tools that we discussed today. And just finally, we have another webinar next Saturday, still on the theme of understanding your learners. So we've got someone from Senegal who will be sharing some classroom tips on how to create a happy, fun, and engaging environment. So we invite you all to sign up to this webinar. We'll share the slides with everyone who were here today. So expect it in your email in the next day or so. And thank you again, everyone, for participating and for your comments, your questions, and your active participation into the session. And I also thank Abel very much for being here as well, for sharing all these insights, which I guess are going to be critical to helping teachers assess better, not just because they have to, but because they see that they match, anything that they do is going to match, learners' needs and eventually, benefit learners' learning outcomes. So thanks so much, everyone. And I wish you a great weekend. And we'll see you next Saturday. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Abel. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.